Gacy lived a double life. He stuffed himself into a clown costume. He performed at birthday parties. He raised money for sick children at fundraisers. He shook hands with the First Lady of the United States. He was a pillar of society, but in the shadows, he murdered 33 young men and boys and buried most of them under his own house. This is not a horror film. This is the reality of suburban Chicago, and it's a story that still haunts us today. Every home has secrets. Some are just buried deeper than others. Welcome to the Unfold Law. Tonight, we dive into the abyss. Tonight, we dive into the life of John Wayne Gacy, the man who wore many masks, the monster who hid in plain sight. Before we go further, I want you to understand something scientists have wrestled with for decades. Gacy was not the monster we imagined. He was a pillar of his community, an active citizen, a friend to politicians. No one suspected the darkness within him. To understand the scale of Gacy's crimes, we have to look beyond the clown suit. We have to look at the man who built a life on lies. Chicago was a city on edge. Young men were disappearing without a trace, and the answer was closer than anyone dared to think. Born in 1942, Gacy grew up in a working-class family. His father was an abusive alcoholic who never believed in him. He was overweight, struggled socially, and suffered a congenital heart condition that kept him from playing sports with other kids. His heart condition was serious. He spent a lot of time in hospitals. Some believe this early isolation fueled his inner darkness. He learned to manipulate at a young age, using his condition to gain sympathy. It was his first experience with a mask. As he grew, his desire for approval became an obsession. He needed to be seen as successful. He needed to be liked by everyone. He was a man who craved the spotlight, yet hid in the shadows. This duality would define his entire life, but Gacy was determined to prove his father wrong. He moved to Chicago and began a successful career in business. He started PDM Contractors. He was highly respected. He was a man who knew how to get things done in a tough town. He hired many young men, giving them jobs and a sense of purpose. But for some, PDM was the beginning of the end. He used his business as a front, a way to lure vulnerable young men into his orbit. It was a calculated, predatory move. He was active in the Democratic Party. He was even photographed with Rosalind Carter. He was seen as the perfect neighbor. He was a man of the people, a community leader. He was exactly what everyone wanted him to be. A success story in every way. He created Pogo the Clown to visit hospitals and perform for sick children. He seemed generous, helpful, and kind to everyone. But underneath that house, at that very same time, were the bodies of 29 victims. The mask was about to slip forever. Gacy had perfected the art of performance. He could switch between the neighbor and the monster in an instant. It was chilling. His methods were cold and calculated. He would lure victims to his home under the pretense of offering jobs or a place to stay. Once inside, he would use a handcuff trick, a sleight of hand to trap his victims before he tortured and killed them. He buried 26 victims in the crawlspace. The others were disposed of in the Des Plaines River. The smell was masked by lime. The scale of his crimes is staggering. He was a one-man industry of death, operating in the heart of suburban Chicago. He claimed he didn't remember all of his murders. He was a master of performance, a sociopath who created a perfect mask. Gacy's crimes weren't just about murder, they were about power. He needed to feel in control of every situation. He knew how to play the system. He knew how to present himself as the victim, even as he was the ultimate predator. The unraveling began on December 11th, 1978. 15-year-old Robert Peist disappeared after talking to Gacy about a job. Peist's mother had a receipt with Gacy's name on it. This was the first real clue police had in the Peist disappearance. Gacy had been at the pharmacy where Peist worked. It was a chance encounter that would lead to his ultimate downfall. Police began a 24-hour surveillance of Gacy's home. They followed his every move, waiting for him to slip up. They noticed a faint, sickly odor during an initial search. It was a smell that detectives would never forget. The smell of death. On December 21st, detectives returned with a full search warrant. They began the grisly task of digging in the crawlspace. They pulled skeletal remains from the dirt, one after another. The scale of the horror was finally revealed to the world. 33 victims. The search lasted for days. The house was eventually demolished, but the memory of what happened there remains to this day. The neighborhood was shocked. No one could believe that such evil had lived right next door to them for years. The trial was a media circus. Every detail of Gacy's crimes was laid bare. The jury took less than 12 hours to reach a verdict. The verdict was unanimous. Gacy was found guilty on all 33 counts of murder. The weight of his crimes was finally measured. Gacy was sentenced to death. He spent years on death row, filing appeal after appeal, trying to escape the inevitable fate he deserved. He maintained his innocence in many interviews, even as the evidence against him was overwhelming. He never stopped performing. Finally, on May 10th, 1994, John Wayne Gacy was executed. His reported last words were a final act of defiance, a final performance. The man was gone, but the legacy of his crimes would continue to haunt the city and the world for decades to come. A dark legacy. His name became synonymous with evil, a warning to all that things are not always as they seem on the surface. But why does this story matter today? Why do we still speak his name? Because it reminds us how easily monsters can hide in plain sight. For 40 years, some victims were just numbers. 8 remained unidentified for decades. Their families never had closure. Until now, the pain of not knowing is a burden no family should have to bear. The search for their identities became a quest for justice. Scientists worked tirelessly, using the latest techniques to find matches and bring answers to families who have waited so long. They were sons, brothers, friends, people with dreams and futures that were cruelly taken from them in the dark. This case changed how we investigate missing persons. It changed how we profile serial killers. It left a scar on the American psyche. It teaches us to look closer, to trust our instincts, to never assume that we truly know what happens behind closed doors. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We tell the stories that must not be forgotten. This is the Unfold Law. Stay curious. Always, we are the keepers of these stories, the ones who ensure that the truth is never buried again. This is our mission. I want to hear from you. This case raises questions about community and trust. How can we truly know who lives next door? Join the conversation below. If you find these episodes important, subscribe. We read every comment. Thank you for watching and stay curious. See you in the next episode.